Ms. Simon herself has called her appointment an important moment for the relationship between Canada, First Nations, Métis, and of course Inuit people. A step along the way to reconciliation. Many people see it as that too. Over the next couple of hours, we're going to hear about what her appointment means from those who know her best, her family, her friends, and some who represent the Inuit community as well. And we'll also bring you right to Mary Simon's hometown of Kuujjuaq. Of course, you'll hear from her too live when she gives her first address to the nation as Governor General, as will the Prime Minister. And here's something special. We are bringing you this special not only in English, but also simulcasting in Inuktitut, the traditional oral language of Inuit in the Arctic. For thousands of years, from one generation to the next, Inuit have passed on their stories through spoken word and in song, much of their history also done orally. We felt it was pretty important to provide live, simultaneous interpretation of today's event. That is a first for a CBC News special. So, if you speak Inuktitut, I do not, but if you do, you can watch the stream live right now on CBC Nunavut Facebook page, on cbcnews.ca, and on CBC Gem.
Adjengwit takutayo tamanatu inawilon Inuktitut takunaunaktuti CBC Nunavut Facebook ngatigut hakatawyagut ikaklivinga cbcnews.ca amalo CBC Gem.
So, ulukut to all the people watching us in Nunavut and other places today, and who are tuning in Inuktitut. That's a pretty cool thing. Joining me today throughout this special is the CBC's Juanita Taylor. She is in Mary Simon's hometown of Kuujjuaq, Quebec, and of course the CBC's Ashley Burke, senior reporter, is outside the Senate in front of the red carpet, waiting for Ms. Simon's arrival. Good to have you both with us today. Appreciate it. Ashley, let's start with you. Obviously, this is a historic moment for the country and for Mary Simon. Just remind us why this is such a special moment at a particular time for this country.
Well, this is one of the most important state ceremonies. It's a day really steeped in royal tradition, so expect the same sort of pomp and pageantry that you're used to, but a much more scaled down version because of COVID-19 restrictions. But this is also going to be a ceremony unlike any other because, as you said, Mary Simon is making history today, becoming the first Indigenous Governor General after decades fighting and being a tireless advocate for Indigenous rights, becoming Canada's first Arctic ambassador. Today we're expecting to see her personality, her vision for this mandate really woven into the ceremony. So a series of Indigenous performers, elders who are going to be in that small audience inside, as well as some of her speech. She's going to address Canadians for the first time in history, first time as a Governor General officially, with a speech that centers around two key themes: youth and reconciliation. And we're expecting she'll likely speak in Inuktitut as well.
Okay, so obviously you did a lot of the reporting that brought us to this place with this new Governor General. Maybe remind us a little bit about why we are here now.
Well, we're here in part now because of the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and his government's failure to thoroughly vet the last Governor General, Julie Payette, in 2017, and in particular speak to some of her past workplaces that may have flagged some of the issues, allegations around harassment that could have perhaps foreshadowed what was to come at Rideau Hall. A year ago this month, we reported on a bunch of current and former employees who claimed harassment, a toxic workplace environment at Rideau Hall. And after that, that triggered the government to launch an external review that an overwhelming amount of people took part in, more than 90. It backed up that reporting, but also 6 months the day after our first story, Julie Payette resigned from office. Since then, there's been a half-a-year vacancy for that role. That is the second longest vacancy in Canadian history. The Chief Justice has stepped in. He has been doing double duty, two of the highest jobs in the land in the meantime. Until today, everything changes.
Okay, and of course, it's a new era for the country, but a new era for Rideau Hall and many of the people inside there who had to work in those conditions and are already seeing a difference because Mary Simon has moved into Rideau Hall, whereas Julie Payette never did actually live in the building. Okay, Ashley, we'll come back to you through the morning. Thank you. Ashley's just outside the building where I am, waiting for Ms. Simon's arrival with her husband, Whit Fraser. Mary Simon obviously brings a wealth of experience to the job. Many of you may know her, but for others, she may be a new face. She's been forging connections, though, for decades. She's been a negotiator, an ambassador, a leader, and even a broadcaster. In the 1970s and early 80s, Simon worked as a journalist for CBC Radio and TV, and her voice in Inuktitut brought the news to a new audience.
They, at the same time, have to recognize and settle the offshore rights of the Inuit people.
She helped negotiate the first land claim agreement in Canada between Inuit, Cree, Quebec, and the federal government.
There is a lot of pollution that's infiltrating the Arctic regions.
In 1994, she was the first ambassador for Circumpolar Affairs and soon helped create the 8-member Arctic Council. Later, work through a national nonprofit continued, bringing northern issues to the fore, including climate change.
A lot of people, hunters, are concerned that it's all going to change and they won't be able to practice their cultural practices anymore, which is really part of our own identity.
And throughout her decades of work, Simon believed she could make a difference.
We have hope in our lives. I mean, we're not in a hopeless situation.
Mary Simon's clearly immensely proud of her heritage as an Inuk. It has really marked her whole career, her dedication to her culture, to her community, to her people. And her roots are deeply connected to the land and to a traditional way of life. That is the way that she was raised. She grew up in Kuujjuaq. It's a remote, tight-knit community of about 2,500 people located in Nunavik, which is the northernmost region of Quebec. And that's where we find Juanita Taylor live this Monday morning. So glad you could join us, Juanita. I would imagine that this is a big day for that small community too.
Rosie, it is a very big day. As you mentioned, there's about 25 people who live here in Kuujjuaq. It's raining today, but that is not dampening the spirits of people here in Kuujjuaq, the people here in Nunavik. And I have Charlie Watt standing here with me. He is a former senator of Nunavik. Not only that, he is also a childhood friend of Mary Simon's. Ublachak Charlie.
Ulakut.
Tell us, what does having Mary Simon as our next Governor General, what does that mean for Canada?
Well, first of all, this is the first time that Inuk person has ever been appointed into the very high level of the authorities. So it means a lot to us, We are very, very proud of Mary Simon and the fact that they have succeeded into that very high level. And she's going to do a good job. And I've known her for practically all my life. So we worked together off and on over the years. And she's going to do an excellent job representing the Aboriginal people in this country.
Okay, and Charlie, just quickly talk about just some of the challenges that Mary Simon may encounter as the next Governor General.
Well, there are a number of issues that still need to be resolved under the federal jurisdictions and including the provincial jurisdictions, and that's still an issue that is a challenging that for Mary Simon. Plus, more importantly, international issue is another issue that we need to put a harness on. Sooner or later, down the road, when the international economy gets better, we know for a fact that there's going to be a great deal of interest coming from the international community wanting to extract resources that we have in the Arctic. And I do believe that Mary is going to be able to make a big difference in that area.
All right, Charlie, and as her childhood friend, as somebody who is from Kuujjuaq, tell us how proud you are of Mary Simon today.
Mary, congratulations. I wish that I'm there with you. Since I could not make it, at least what I could do is to try to help out on this end of it. Mary, congratulations. Hold it tight. I know you will do whatever needs to be done and succeed. And there's a support behind you.
Matna Charlie.
Nakomek, love you, Mary.
Back to you, Rosie.
Juanita, thank you so much for that. It's raining there, but I saw some earlier pictures of the gathering you did earlier. I did not know that Kuujjuaq had such beautiful beaches. So we will show some of that tape later. Matna to you, Juanita. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay, we'll be back to you through the show. Thanks, Juanita. In the 2000s, Mary Simon spent 6 years at the helm of the Inuit Kapirit Kanatami. It's the largest Inuit organization in the country, and Natan Obed is the current president of the ITK. He was also part of the the advisory group that helped select Ms. Simon as Governor General, and he too is just outside the Senate building in Ottawa. Good to see you, Natan. Hello.
Hi, good morning, Rosie.
I'm practicing my Inuktitut hello, so ulakut. I think I've got it, ulakut. Good to see you.
Ulakut. Yeah, good morning.
So tell me how you're feeling. You're going to be inside the Senate chamber, one of the few people to be invited in. How are you feeling about today, Natan?
Oh, I'm excited for Mary. I'm actually very excited for Canada. This is a step forward in reconciliation, but it's also just a potential for Canadians to understand more about Canada and Canadians and what incredible diversity and strength we have in our Indigenous peoples, and also what great leadership and accomplishment we have in Inuit, First Nations, and Métis in this country. I wish nothing but the best for Mary, and I know she'll do an excellent job in the role.
I know you were part of the advisory group that recommended Ms. Simon to the Prime Minister. Obviously, I'm not going to get you to divulge the other names that were on that short list, but what was it about Mary Simon, her resume, her character, that sort of pushed her to the top of the list?
Just her diversity of experience. She's led an incredible life, going to federal day school as a child, then very quickly becoming a leader within her community and region, working as the president of Makivik Corporation, working as the president of Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, also being a diplomat, being the ambassador to Denmark, also the ambassador for circumpolar affairs for the Government of Canada, and then leading foundations. She was part of the group that formed the Arctic Children and Youth Foundation. She has done all she possibly can for mental health, for education, and for youth amongst the Inuit population, but also handles herself with grace and class, and is somebody that when you're in the room with her, there is a presence that she has, and there's also a respect that she has for other people that really shines through. So I think that when we were deliberating about the type of person who could be the next Governor General, the names that we would want to put forward to the Prime Minister for his consideration, Mary fits so many of those categories. And there weren't many wrong choices in any of the considerations that we talked about. It's just about who might get the opportunity and who the Prime Minister might feel is the best suited for this particular opportunity.
As you all know, there's been a long debate with people having different views about whether an Indigenous person should indeed represent the Crown in this country. Why do you think it makes sense, and perhaps it makes sense at this moment in time?
Well, from my experience interacting with Governor Generals such as Adrienne Clarkson and Michaëlle Jean, David Johnston, the first and foremost thing that they do in their jobs is celebrate the success of Canadians. They also bring their lived experience. They bring who they are and the exceptional people that they are into the room and into the conversation with anyone who comes into Rideau Hall, or if they're in Canada, wherever they may be. The interactions that they have and the connection that they build with other Canadians is really at the heart now of what a Governor General is. It's really to celebrate Canadian success. Yes, of course, there is still that fundamental role as the head of state and the Queen's representative in Canada, but I'm struggling with words here about how that actually does fit in 2021.
Yep.
The reality is that she can do that role as an Indigenous person, and that she does it as an individual. Mm-hmm. She is not representing Inuit as Governor General. She is an Inuk who has decided to let her name stand and has decided to accept this particular role. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's just a huge step forward for Canada.
What do you think? What will it mean to you, first of all, to be in there and hear Mary Simon give her speech partly in Inuktitut, and what do you think it means to Inuit people today?
There's a tremendous amount of pride across Inuit Nunangat for Mary Simon, and also there is a connection that Inuit are going to have with her that is unlike any previous Governor General. Governor Generals usually come to Inuit Nunagat, and there is a strong connection between many Governor Generals. I mean, I just think about Michael Jean eating seal heart in Rankin Inlet in Nunavut. So Governor Generals have played a very positive role in many instances in relation to Inuit. But to have an Inuk in this particular role and to feel as though part of us and part of our family is in Rideau Hall and is, able to represent all Canadians makes us proud to be Canadians and proud to show our strengths and our language to all Canadians. What I think is really important as well in relation to language is that Inuktitut is a founding language of this country. And yes, Mary Simon is not fluent in French today. She has pledged to learn it. But really, we as Canadians have to think more broadly and holistically about the linguistic diversity of this country. And we have to celebrate Indigenous languages and understand that they are founding languages of this country, and that matters. As do French and English, absolutely. But Inuktitut belongs in Rideau Hall just as much as French and English.
And let me correct myself because I made this horrible mistake saying Inuit people. Of course, it's just Inuit because Inuit means people. So my apologies for that one. I won't make that mistake again.
Rosie. You're doing great.
It's happening. It's happening in real time, Natan. Matna, thank you so much, and I'll see you inside. Good to see you, Natan.
Yeah.
That's Natan Obed, president of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami. Okay, Ms. Simon did send out her first tweet yesterday. She moved into Rideau Hall and she sent this out as her first message to Canadians as Governor General designate. Whit and I are immensely proud and excited. We hope you will tune in to experience this meaningful event alongside us. Indeed, it is going to be, filled with all sorts of Indigenous celebration, tributes to the Métis, First Nations, and Inuit of this country. But it will be much, much smaller and quieter than it has been in the past. Usually the Senate is packed for these events because they are a big deal no matter who the Governor General is. Today there will be just 44 people inside. Here's what to expect though over the next few hours. In about 20 minutes time, the Prime Minister and the Governor General designate will arrive here at the Senate together. That formal ceremony starts at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's just a little over half an hour from now. We'll bring that to you, of course, uninterrupted. Ms. Simon will give her first address to the nation as the new Governor General once she goes through the swearing in and the signing of documents and taking on various orders. After that, she will then head just close to where I am, to the National War Memorial, in her first official act as the Governor General, because she is also in that role, or will be, the Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces, and she will lay flowers at that time at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and then she'll make her way back to Rideau Hall and be greeted by family and close friends. Many of them are watching from Rideau Hall because, in fact, they just don't have enough room here because of the ongoing pandemic. So very limited numbers here in the Senate today. I want to bring in a longtime friend, though, of Mary Simon's, Nancy Karatak-Lindell. She's a former Liberal MP for Nunavut for over 10 years, and her path has crossed with Mary Simon in work and in life. Nancy, nice to see you this morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
I know that you, I think you first met Mary Simon when you were in high school. She's a little bit older than you. We won't say how much. What did you first think of Mary Simon when you knew her way back when?
Well, I always thought she was a lady of grace, and that has been prevalent throughout her many hats, as Natan was just saying, of what positions she has had. So I think as a person, she has always been so calm and serene, and I think that has helped her in the many positions that she's held since then.
Did you see her then? Do you see her now as a role model for Indigenous people, for Inuit?
Oh yes, definitely. I'm one, as you say. I'm a bit younger than her, and I've followed her over the years. Well, not that much, but enough that she has been one of my role models, and I've always appreciated the time that we've spent together and chat as friends. As you know, we both had difficult positions in our lives, and so I've always appreciated that. But also, as growing up, we did not have the type of role models that we see today. In our small communities where we were so isolated from the rest of the world, we only saw people that came into our communities to work, and they were non-Inuit. But also over the years, Inuit have started to see many people take on positions of authority, and I think that's just great.
Well, it sort of changes, it changes what is possible for young people, I guess, right? If you can see people who are like you in these positions, it changes what is possible. How important do you think it is to see an Inuk woman in this position that is so important in this country? Symbolic, yes, but also meaningful.
Well, traditions are important and symbolism is important. And I think it's just wonderful. I'm just so proud of Mary to have been appointed the Governor General, or will be in a few minutes. And I think in this very difficult time that Canada is facing right now, we need to see gestures. We need to see action. And it's also very important to me that there is integrity and respect in positions like these, so that people can see the effort being made and not just words. And as people always say, words are great, but actions are better. And I think this action speaks a lot for many of us First Peoples of this country.
Do you think, Nancy, that this is a meaningful part of reconciliation? Do you think that it is a necessary part of that, given what much of the country is trying to come to terms with right now, things that Indigenous people have known about, but perhaps other Canadians were not as aware of as they should have been?
I think it's very important that we see someone like Mary in this position that will help our government on the road to reconciliation. It's important that we see one of us at the table. We've always said that. You'll hear it from many leaders across the country, that unless we're part of the solution, part of the process, part of the group that's making decisions for us, nothing will work unless we're right at the table and are part of the reconciliation journey. And I think we're getting there, but we need to see action. We need to see someone that we trust and know where we have been, what roads we have traveled, and can understand us. And I think that's critical. And as anyone would say that has worked with reconciliation or mediation, that you have to have people there at the table who understand.
Anything you'd like to say to Mary Simon today, Nancy?
Oh, that I'm just so very proud of her, and I know she will do well in this position. She's a lady of grace and dignity and integrity, all the things that you want to see in a position like this. And I wish her the best, and I look forward to meeting her and hopefully visiting her soon. Now that
she's
we're
got a big
actually
house,
able to see some people.
Yeah, and she's got a big
Yes,
house,
I've been
Nancy.
there, and it's a beautiful place.
It is.
It's a beautiful place, and as Natan was saying, it's a great place to celebrate people.
It sure is.
Canadians.
Nancy Cartag Lindell Matna, thank you so much. Good to see you today. I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you. As we've been mentioning, Mary Simon is from Kuujjuaq, but first let me show you where she is moving in. This is her new house, if you were, Rideau Hall. It is a beautiful place that has long been the home of the Governor General, the Queen's representative in this country. Of course, it was not where Julie Payette decided to live. She lived on the grounds in another smaller cottage, and that too became a bit of a source of controversy. The Prime Minister also lives on the grounds of Rideau Hall, sort of behind Rideau Hall, behind that building, in a smaller home called Rideau Cottage, because he's not living at 24 Sussex. But Rideau Hall itself has a beautiful downstairs that is open for functions with many, many beautiful rooms. And then there is a private sort of apartment above where Mary Simon and her husband, Whit Fraser, have moved in over the weekend. So it will take back the life perhaps that was missing under the previous Governor General to see someone in there. As we said, though, Mary Simon is from Kuujjuaq, a remote northern community in Quebec. It takes an awfully long time to get there even. We asked people there what she and her appointment mean to them. Here's what they had to say about the first Inuk Governor General.
She's like the most down-to-earth person that I know, very passionate about Inuit people, and she's been serving for the North for so long. Who better than to have to support the North and let us be recognized a bit more?
It means so much to me as an Inuk woman that she's taking on this role. She's a role model to all of us, and she's an example and proof that all of our Inuit women can make changes in the world.
I could see that there's a lot of people, a lot of Inuit here that are really proud of her. When the news came out, I told my father, "Hey, Mary Simon is the new Governor General." He was like, "Really?" Because they're cousins too. So he was quite proud too when he heard that, when I told him about it, and we were all super happy and excited for that.
Those are just some of the people in Kuujjuaq responding, talking about how they feel about Mary Simon being named as the Governor General. And I told you, those Kuujjuaq beaches, they're probably worth visiting. They look pretty extraordinary. We are just waiting here for the live shot of Rideau Hall. Mary Simon probably emerging very soon with her husband to make her way over to where I am here at the Senate of Canada, which is just downtown, down the street from the Parliamentary Building. It's in a temporary location right now as the actual Senate undergoes, as the whole center block actually undergoes extensive renovations of the building there. Inside the Senate, you can already see, we can pop that shot up for you maybe on the side if we can, the presence of an Inuk elder who is getting ready to light the kulik, which is a traditional Inuit oil lamp that was used to sometimes warm the home, warm the igloo. If the people were living in an igloo, it was lit traditionally with seal fat or whale blubber. And you can see underneath there, it is usually, traditionally also carved out of soapstone. That is Inuk elder Sally Webster, who's going to be doing that today. Oh, there it's happening right as I speak. Look at that. It was even used to cook food, to dry clothing, to boil water, to drink in traditional times. It's a very important symbol, traditional symbol for Inuit. And it's, I would imagine, the very first time it's been lit here too, inside the Senate, the kulik as it's called, a traditional Inuit oil lamp. And that is part of the ceremony that is imbued here by Mary Simon and her past and her upbringing, which was largely traditional, she says. You know, they lived off the land, they hunted, they trapped, and that's how they lived a large part of their life. Her father actually was worked for the Hudson Bay Company, and he sort of adopted much of that lifestyle after marrying her mother, who is herself Inuk. Let's go back to Rideau Hall if we can, after seeing the kulik, and there again, where we're expecting Mary Simon to leave shortly to make her way here to the Senate chambers, and that is where the official ceremony will get underway with, as we've said, severely reduced number of people given the pandemic, but there will be people watching at Rideau Hall, members of Mary Simon's family, and indeed people across the country will be watching too, as this country gets ready for what is really a historic moment. The first Indigenous person to become Governor General, the 30th Governor General, the 5th woman to take that on that role at a really important poignant moment for this country too, as many parts of the country come to terms with the devastating tragedy and history of residential schools in this country, as different communities seek the graves and the bodies of some of the children who were lost during that time. As we wait for Mary Simon, I will bring in Ashley Burke, who's just outside the Senate. Ashley, I do think that there is, here she is. Here's Mary Simon just coming out. I'll just, with her husband, Whit Fraser, who was a longtime journalist, broadcaster as well. And they're going to make their way to where I am. It's about maybe a 10-minute drive or so, maybe less, because they probably have some police escort. But I was saying, Ashley, that this does come at a really, perhaps a turning point, perhaps, for this country in terms of reconciliation, given the way that many Canadians, I think, are being confronted with things that perhaps they weren't taught in school, perhaps they didn't know enough about, and are starting to take this as a moment to learn about that. And perhaps that's what Mary Simon's appointment will offer as well, an opportunity of learning for many Canadians.
Yeah, Mary Simon has been considered, it's been reported, for this role in the past, but the minister in charge of this file has said that this was the right time, that this is a moment right now where we're seeing this incredibly fractured relationship between Indigenous peoples and the Crown. We saw statues of the Queen that were torn down in protest recently due to this reckoning right now that's going on over Canada's dark past, over residential schools and the discovery of these unmarked burial sites of children's remains. And so certainly I think a lot of people are looking towards her mandate to be part of really healing wounds of the past with Indigenous peoples and the Crown, as well as with the workplace culture in Rideau Hall. She's also the Commander-in-Chief of the military, which is going through its own reckoning of sexual misconduct. So really a mandate focused on healing.
Yeah, and she has talked about how she wants to do some of that in her first speech the day of her appointment, and we're expecting to hear certainly more about that as well today. I wonder too, though, Ashley, whether there isn't a certain amount of sort of pressure imbued in that, right? To become the figurehead, the representative of the Queen, and to be yourself, because she attended a day school residential school, to be part of that and have to speak, for people and try and teach people about this. There is a certain amount of pressure that comes with that as well, I think.
It sounds like an enormous task, and on top of that, she's already facing some controversy and complaints over the fact that she doesn't speak French. She, of course, is bilingual in Inuktitut and English, and she has said that she was denied the opportunity to learn English growing up because she went to a federal day school, and that she's committed to learning on the job. But the Official Languages Commissioner has received more than 430 complaints over this past month about the fact she doesn't speak French, even though she's committed to learning on the job. So it's certainly something that's also on her shoulders. Imagine this grueling schedule, all the things you just listed, and then on top of that, having to study and learn French as quickly as possible. It's not a small task.
Okay, and we are seeing the convoy there arrive with Ms. Simon and her husband, Greg Peters, the usher of the Black Rod, waiting out front for her. He will be the person. Oh, sorry, I think this is the Prime Minister arriving, as it turns out, not the Governor General. That's okay, he's important too. He's pulling up in his convoy. The usher of the Black Rod, as I said, Greg Peters, there to welcome everybody. That will be his role. He's an important figure today in the pomp and circumstance of what is happening today. I should point out that Mary Simon, too, in her husband's book, Whit Fraser's book, she did actually, when it was rumored she might become the Governor General back in 2009, she heard it on TV, and she decided to start taking French lessons at the time. But then, of course, she was not chosen. But she's been at it for a little while anyway. There is the Prime Minister and his wife, Sylvie Gregoire Trudeau. That's the Heritage Minister, Stephen Guilbeault. He's one of the people who is allowed to be at the front to greet the Prime Minister and the Governor General. Of course, this is all happening in the midst of, this is the Prime Minister now talking to the drummers who will be playing shortly, the Ottawa River Singers. But this appointment comes in the midst of a lot of talk, well-founded talk, I would say, about an election and an election speculation that could come as early as towards the end of this summer. And the Prime Minister in that case would have to go to the Governor General and make the case that he needs to dissolve Parliament for a renewed mandate. So all of that sort of happening in the background, the politics of this, as we await for the official ceremony to begin. As we do that, though, let me bring in Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont, or Akwi-Kwe. She's a law professor and director of UBC's Indian Residential School History and Dialogue Center. She's known Mary Simon and worked with her in various different ways for 35 years. I hope I said Akwi-Kwe the right way, Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont.
You did perfectly fine, Rosemary. Good morning.
I am being tested in all my language failures today, I must say. On your screen, people, you're seeing the Chief Justice, Richard Wagner, who, of course, had stepped in to replace Julie Payette when she resigned. Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont, how are you feeling about today?
Oh, I think it's an exciting day. It's a transformative moment for Canada to have an Indigenous Governor General, and I think Mary Simon is going to help Canadians understand the experiences of Indigenous peoples, but also ensure that she can hold space for all Canadians to understand each other. So she's a very important individual. This is a wonderful appointment, and this is a really exciting day for all of us.
What, for people that don't know Mary Simon well, what would you say, sort of from your experience with her, defines her as a person, as a diplomat, as an Inuk?
Well, I think she's prudent. She's obviously deeply committed to the survival and dignity of Indigenous peoples and the rights and territories of Indigenous peoples. I mean, she has this acute understanding of the Arctic, and because she has an acute understanding of the Arctic and Indigenous peoples of the Arctic region, the circumpolar region, she's a very strong voice on significant issues of our day. As we sit here with forest fires and other impacts of climate change, she's very knowledgeable on the ground on those impacts. But she also is someone who negotiated the first Inuit land claims agreement, which was the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, and First Nations and Inuit did not necessarily have the most harmonious relationships. She had to bring those together and do some very sensitive negotiations quite a long time ago, early in her career, and she showed great prudence and great capacity and a great commitment to reconciliation. So I think this is a really positive day.
I will ask you about this because Ashley Burke alluded to it, and that, of course, is this question of not being able to speak French. She's taking lessons. She's taken lessons in the past. There, of course, I'll just stop to allow Mary Simon to arrive. Lots of cheering. Oh, isn't that nice? Lots of people out who've come down to see that. These are people just standing across the street there from the Senate, and the usher of the Black Rod introducing Mary Simon and her husband to everyone as she makes her way in. Just give me a minute, Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont, and I'll come back to you in a moment.
How are you?
I really did. We've been in a summer clothes on clothes.
Today, Prime Minister. Oh, it is a good job. It is a good job.
We have a performance, Simon, if you'd just like to stand for a minute, please. Just a minute, please.
They are going to be greeted here by the drumming circle, as I mentioned, the Ottawa River Singers. So we will let that unfold, and I will come back to Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont if I can. This is just one part of the Indigenous tradition and ceremony that has been brought into today. You will see it scattered throughout the official program. All right, there's nothing like a drumming circle to kick off a ceremony. That also was an acknowledgement that this ceremony is taking place on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. And we will hear that recognition certainly at the beginning of all the speeches here as Mary Simon, the Prime Minister, make their way into the Senate chamber where I am. This is the Speaker of the Senate, George Furey, who is greeting the Governor General Designate and her husband. And perhaps I can bring back Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont. Can I do that here? That is the Speaker of the House, Anthony Rota. Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont, thank you. I never want to get in the way of a drum circle. That would would never be a good thing. And probably
that was a beautiful honor welcoming, and you can see already that Governor General Mary Simon, Governor General nominate, I guess still, how she has incorporated and interwoven the ceremonies and practices of Indigenous peoples, starting out with that First Nations drumming. So it was pretty beautiful.
It was beautiful, and there will be other components, Inuit and Métis components. And here Mary Simon's greeting the national Indigenous leaders, Nathan Obed, Clément Chartrand, and the new head of the AFN. But let me get back to that question I was asking you, Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont, about the French language. This has irked some people in Quebec, but I know you have strong views on that.
Yes, I think that Mary Simon, as Governor General, is bilingual. She's bilingual in Inuktitut, which of course you're live broadcasting today in, which is fantastic, and English. I would say she's not, she has some French She's not completely unskilled in French. She doesn't have French fluency, but one of the reasons why she lacks French fluency was the nature of the day school, federal government day school that was run in her Inuit community where she was raised. She is committed to that, but it is quite important to recognize that with Mary Simon's appointment, we are acknowledging in Canada that there has been this myth of two founding nations, English and French, as though the land was empty and there were no Indigenous people prior. And now we're seeing that, in fact, the Inuktitut is a language. It is an official language in the Northwest Territories, and it is one of the larger Indigenous languages, but the protection and promotion of Indigenous languages is quite significant in Canada and important and vital. And so she is multilingual, and I think that she will be continuing with her French fluency. And I would hope that Canadians make space for her and for her Inuktitut and for her indigeneity as she becomes our first Indigenous Governor General.
They're just now in a private room here for 2 to 3 minutes. Let me ask you about you. I sort of talked about it earlier, about whether you think there is sort of an enormous amount of pressure or some pressure on Mary Simon because of the moment that we are in. It's not just, of course, that she has become the first Indigenous Governor General. It's that this has happened at a time when much of this country is awakening or reawakening, perhaps, to a history that is not well known, should be better known, and that is happening at the same time as this. Do you see that that is a big task for Mary Simon, or is it the task of all of us?
I think that any Governor General, probably 80% of their role is preset. There's a lot of structure to this role, and advisors and key functions when you're the vice-regal in Canada, that will be there. There will be a space, though, for her to be her, of course, and I think it will be impossible for her not to play some kind of role to either educate, inform, or hold dialogue space for Canadians to understand the experiences of Indigenous people and the unfinished business in terms of truth and reconciliation, particularly the truth and justice aspect, with the residential school legacy continuing to be with us because of the missing children and the mass graves. But I think that she will play a role there. I think this is thrust upon her, even if she hadn't chosen this. Yeah. And that will be to help explain, to be present, to be able to hold that kind of conflict in a place that can deepen understanding. She's not a partisan player, but I think it's quite important that we have nonpartisan players like Governor General Mary Simon to help explain to Canadians and symbolize the important conflicts that we have to address in terms of the relationships with Indigenous peoples and with all Canadians.
Mary Ellen Trippa-Lafont, thank you for getting up a little bit early for us, probably earlier than you would have liked. We might come back to you later if we have time, but thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate your perspective this morning. Thanks.
No problem, Rosemary. We're all having a watching party here too.
Okay.
So
take
good.
Care. Well, that's nice. Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. We are told that Mary Simon will highlight two key themes throughout today's ceremony, not surprisingly, reconciliation and youth. In fact, one of the things that you realize as you read more about Mary Simon is how many issues she has taken on as near and dear to her heart and advocated for many years, whether it be young people, climate change, the mental health of Inuit and others, and indeed, of course, reconciliation. All of these really important subject matters for her, and we'll see how she weaves those issues into her time as Governor General, as all Governor Generals do. You take on an issue or a few issues that are important to you to try and expand knowledge and teachings to Canadians and help connect Canadians to some of those issues. Nancy Eatock is a vice principal in, I'm going to try this, Nancy, Kanjik-Sulujuaq. Kanjik-Sulujuaq. It's not an easy language for me anyway. You also worked with Mary Simon on the Nunavut Inuit Constitutional Task Force. This one I've got down, Ulakut. Nice to see you, Nancy.
Ulakut. Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you for your patience with me and my bad Inuktitut. Fortunately, I'm being translated.
No, you're doing awesome.
Okay, good. I am being translated by people who can really speak, so that's good for anyone who's watching in Inuktitut. You know Mary Simon pretty well. You've worked with her. How would you describe her to people who maybe aren't as familiar with her?
Mary, she is a very humble compassionate yet fierce in a good way person. And I absolutely am thrilled that she's going to be our next Governor General.
I heard, and I don't know if you know this, I heard she plays the accordion and sometimes breaks it out at parties.
With Mary, I have no doubt. Like anything that comes her way, she's going to be able to do. I have no doubt about
Well,
that.
I can't imagine a party with an accordion at Rideau Hall, but I'll talk more to her about that at some point, I'm sure. What did you think when you heard that she would become the next Governor General?
Ooh, there was a lot of emotion, a lot of excitement. And honestly, I really wanted to flex my muscles because it just brings strength to everyone in Canada, not only Indigenous, but everyone, because what Mary has accomplished in her life, all the stuff that she's worked on, all of the connections that she's made, she's the kind of person that's going to intertwine everything to make it work. And so, yeah, she's amazing.
You're a vice principal in your community. I should say you're in Ontario right now, but normally you're up north. How are young people responding to this? Does this sort of change, your conversations with them in terms of what's possible?
It's very empowering, especially for the young females, because we're seeing an Inuk woman who's accomplishing something that we never thought would happen. And so everyone, including everyone, not just females, everyone is super excited for her.
As I said, Mary Simon's taken on a lot of things that are important to her and to Inuit, whether it be climate change, the Arctic, mental health, education, health, many, many things. Is there anything there that you're hoping that she sort of takes up the mantle of and becomes an advocate for, perhaps beyond reconciliation, or maybe that's the most important issue for you?
Right now, if we're going to thrive as a country, there needs to be a reconciliation. And so she is going to be able to bring that because she understands, because she grew up in an Inuit community, not only Inuit, but Indigenous. So she has an understanding, and she's lived what we call the South here, not Florida, but around this here.
That's right, yeah.
She understands the two worlds, and so she's going to be able to have those conversations so that there's understanding between the two worlds. And so that's what I'm super excited because I know that she's going to be bringing that.
Do you feel, Nancy, with everything going on with the discovery of unmarked graves and remains, and now the arrival of Mary Simon, do you feel that this country is at a particular moment here for reconciliation?
It's almost like everything was meant to be, like the universe unfolded as it should, because with what's happening now and she being Indigenous and having all of that knowledge, understanding for the two worlds, it just combines perfectly. And so that is why it's so exciting, not just because like she's Indigenous, because what she has to deliver for all Canadians is it's amazing.
Would you, Nancy, like to say anything in Inuktitut to her right now?
Yes, can I?
Yes, of course, please. I won't understand it, but you can tell me what you said after. Yeah, go ahead.
Mary, upigit siya hagi sumay nalo, naligid lakid sugidlo iso hangitumot, alias siya abutit. So Mary, I'm very proud of you. I love you to eternity, and have fun during your journey.
Oh, that's great. It's a beautiful language. It is a beautiful language, but I only know really two words. So matna, Nancy. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's nice to meet you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the time.
You
That's
too.
Vice Principal Nancy Ituk. She was in Ontario there, but she works up north and has known Mary Simon for a long time. The more we hear about Mary Simon, the more you start to understand not only what she's done, but also that she sounds like kind of like a lot of fun too, which is sort of part of a Governor General's role as well, because you are meant to bring in people, bring Canadians, travel across the country and try and connect Canadians with some of the things that you're talking about, but also with you. We are just waiting for the Governor General designate and other dignitaries to come out of a private room where they're having a short private meeting and make their way here down the red carpet. I don't know, could I see the Queen pictures? I don't know if you could bring those up, because I don't think we got to them. Of course, the appointment of the Governor General, we don't have pictures. All right. The appointment of the Governor General comes after a recommendation by the Prime Minister to the Queen, and we did see some pictures and video over the weekend of Mary Simon having her first, obviously, virtual audience with the Queen, and that was a nice moment too, to see the two of them interacting for the first time as Mary Simon takes up the mantle of the representative of the Queen, the vice-regal here in this country. The Queen, of course, the head of state, the Prime Minister, the head of government. All right, let's bring in Ashley Burke again to talk a little bit, Ashley, about how Mary Simon got this job, because the previous appointment was just sort of the Prime Minister deciding. That led to the issues that we've talked about. So he decided to take a different tack this time round.
Exactly, Rosie. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came under criticism for going with his own personal selection in 2017 when he went with Julie Payette, and for ditching the Harper government's advisory committee that had been set up that selected David Johnston, who many see as someone who had a successful time in office. And so this time, the Liberal government went with their own advisory group as trusted officials that they had, more than a dozen meetings. They looked over dozens of candidates over a series of months, and they came up with a short list between 1 and 10 names. We're told they won't give us that specific number, that was given to the Prime Minister. He took about a week or two to look that list over before announcing Mary Simon this position, and they've been very clear that this was the right time for her to be in this role.
There were rumors, there were rumors, I don't know how well-founded they were, that back in 2009, Mary Simon's name was on a short list. And as I mentioned earlier, her husband writes about that in his book, and how she started taking French lessons just in case the job was offered to her. That didn't happen, but she has been named this time round. I'm going to have to be quiet very, very shortly, because just over my right shoulder here, that staircase you're seeing on the left of your screen is where the dignitaries will make their way from their private chamber, where they're having a short little meeting, down the red carpet and into the chamber, which is just sort of directly in front of me. They don't want me talking over the important people, so I'll be quiet at that point. They'll then make their way into the Senate chamber, where events will get underway. Much of it procedural, of course, but then, of course, the speech both by the Prime Minister and the first address by the Governor General designate, who will then, of course, be the Governor General. So we will see them come out very shortly. Ashley, you can also probably talk to us about Richard Wagner, who had to step in this role. He's Chief Justice, which is a pretty big job, but he had to take on yet another one for a significant period of time.
He's been juggling two of the top jobs in Canada, and there have also been some, this is the second longest vacancy in Canada in history. The last time that a Chief Justice stepped in was for 8 months. It was in 1974. That was the longest, and it was when that individual had a stroke and had to pass on their duties while they were recovering. And he has been, luckily, because of the pandemic, there's one silver lining, is that a lot of the duties that he would normally have to do stepping into this role were cut down. There was no foreign travel. A lot of the ceremonial duties he didn't have to do, but he did pass a number of bills. And that raised questions about whether or not there were issues with that, potential conflict, or maybe some awkwardness signing off on bills that later he might have to make decisions on if there were appeals. And we know that in one case that there was a letter sent to Buckingham Palace over some concerns about that role. He's been very clear, though, and said that he wears two hats as administrator and when he's the Chief Justice, and he does not see that there's any conflict. Constitutional experts and the government have also said that it's just not ideal to have someone in this role for a very long period of time filling a vacancy. And this time around, between Julie Payette's announcement that she was going to take the job and when her installation ceremony was, it was more than 80 days. In comparison with Mary Simon, it's just 21 days, so a much shorter time frame between the announcement and the installation. So obviously this was expedited.
Please rise. Veuillez vous lever. Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé de la nation Algonquin Anishinaabe, présente en ces lieux depuis des temps immémoriaux. For over 30 years, Algonquin Anishinaabe elder Claudette Commanda has promoted First Nations people, history, and culture. She is currently the executive director of the First Nations Confederacy of Cultural Education Centers, a national organization that promotes and protects First Nations culture, languages, and traditional knowledge. I now invite Elder Commanda to offer
Before
words
we
of
hear
welcome
from Elder
and to
Commanda,
officially
just a
open
reminder that
today's
CBC News is bringing
ceremony.
you this ceremony today in Nuktitut. You can watch that stream right now on the CBC Nunavut Facebook page, cbc.ca, and on CBC Gem. We'll listen into the ceremony live and come back to you when we need to. Here, though, now the beginning of the Algonquin welcome.
Kwei Sheba, bonjour, good morning. Elders, Indigenous leaders, Prime Minister Trudeau, Mrs. Trudeau, Chief Justice, Governor General Designate, and your husband. Members of Parliament, members of the Senate, family and friends, First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and Canadians, Pijajikoma, Anishinaabe Aki, O Mamaweniniwag. Bienvenue au territoire
Welcome
non cédé
to the
de
unceded
mes
territory
ancêtres,
of my
nous
ancestors,
peuple, la nation
our
algonquine.
people, the Algonquin Nation.
Governor General Designate Mary Simon. On behalf of the Algonquin Nation, I sincerely welcome you to the homeland of the Algonquin people. We greet you with kindness and love as our relative. Madame Simon, je vous
Ms. Simon,
offre une prière.
I offer a prayer for
May the
you.
Creator and our ancestors bless you every day in your responsibilities as the new Governor General, with strength mashkawiziwin, wisdom nibakawin, and good health mino pimadzwin. Le 26 juillet 2021,
July 26th, 2021
jour pour nouvelle histoire.
is a historic day.
Merci, Créateur, pour
Thank you,
notre
Creator,
leader, Mary
for our
Simon.
leader, Mary Simon.
Miigwech Kishimanado Kinakego. We thank the Creator for everything good. I call on the words of my late grandfather, William Commanda. One mind, one heart, one determination. In essence, Miss Simon, your focus on reconciliation, education, wellness, and youth is the one mind, the one heart, and the one determination for a brighter Canada. Une vision, guérison,
A vision of
un
healing,
esprit d'espoir pour les
a
jeunes
spirit of hope
autochtones et canadiennes.
for Indigenous and Canadian youth,
A vision of healing, a spirit of hope for Indigenous and Canadian youth. Aujourd'hui, c'est une belle journée.
Today is a beautiful day.
Minogijigun Nongum. Today we are here to celebrate your accomplishments, to wish you well, to express community support. Your family and Inuit community uphold you with pride, and Indigenous and Canadian people share in their pride. De tout mon cœur, avec paix,
From the bottom of my heart,
dans un esprit de respect,
in a spirit
and
of
in the
peace and
spirit of
respect,
love. God bless you, Mary Simon, and may you walk softly upon Mother Earth with the 7 grandfathers. Chimiigwej Nishimesh Kizagian. Merci, thank you, Miigwej.
Merci, Madame Commanda, pour vos sages paroles.
Thank you,
et pour
Elder
votre
Commander,
accueil.
for your wise words and your welcome.
Originaire de Salouit,
Hailing from Salouit in Nunavik and now based in Montreal, Elisa P. has become an ambassador for Inuit culture, which she expresses with passion and depth of feeling. The song Arnak, which she will sing today, is a tribute to the strength of women. Please welcome Elisa P.
I would now like to take a moment to explain a tradition that was carried out before the ceremony began, the lighting of the hulik, the traditional Inuit lamp. Made of soapstone, the hulik is used in the Arctic to bring light and warmth traditionally to the home. Traditionnellement, c'est aux femmes que revient la tâche de
Traditionally,
s'occuper du
women
hulik.
have been responsible for tending to the hulik.
Et spirituellement,
Symbolically and
allumé
spiritually,
ici aujourd'hui
the hulik lit here today honors the strength of Inuit families and acknowledges the deep and personal responsibility that Mary May Simon will take on today.
Sally Webster is an Inuk elder from Baker Lake, Nunavut. A longtime friend of Mary Simon, she brings with her today the pride, support, and respect of Inuit for Ms. Simon's installation as Governor General of Canada. Elder Sally Webster is assisted today by Tuni Julie Kutu Sharello. Merci à vous deux d'être ici.
Thank you both for being here with us today.
Depuis la Confédération, en 1867, la fonction de gouverneur général.
Since Confederation in 1867, the role of the Governor General has evolved significantly. The letters patent of 1947, signed by King George VI, redefined the Governor General's powers. Since then, the Governor General has duly performed the duties of head of state, both in Canada and abroad. In accordance with the letters patent, the Governor General is the Commander-in-Chief of Canada. The letters patent require that the description of this position be read publicly when a new Governor General is sworn in.
I now invite the Secretary to the Governor General to read the commission signed by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada.
Elizabeth II, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom, Canada, and her other realms and territories, Queen, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith. 2, our trusty and well-beloved Mary May Simon. Greeting. We do, by this, our present commission, under our Great Seal of Canada, appoint you, Mary May Simon, to be, during our pleasure, our Governor General and Commander-in-Chief in and over Canada, with all the powers, rights, privileges, and advantages belonging or appertaining to the office. And we do hereby authorize, empower, and command you as our representative to exercise and perform, all in singular, the powers and directions contained in certain letters patent under our Great Seal of Canada, bearing the date the 8th day of September in the year of our Lord, 1947, constituting the office of the Governor General and Commander-in-Chief in and over Canada, and in any other letters patent adding to, amending, or substituted for the same. And further, we do hereby appoint that so soon as you shall have taken the prescribed oaths and have entered upon the duties of your office, this, our present commission, shall come into effect. And we do hereby command, all in singular, our officers, ministers, and loving subjects in Canada, and all others whom these presents may concern, to take due notice hereof, and to give their ready obedience accordingly. Given under our royal hand and under our Great Seal of Canada, this 21st day of July, in the year of our Lord, 2021, and the 70th year of our reign. Elizabeth II, par la grâce de Dieu, reine du Royaume-Uni, du Canada,
Elizabeth II, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom, Canada, and her other realms and territories. Queen, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith, to our trusty and well-beloved Mary May Simon. Greeting. We do, by this our present commission under our Great Seal of Canada, appoint you, Mary May Simon, to be, during our pleasure, our Governor General and Commander-in-Chief in and over Canada, with all the powers, rights, privileges, and advantages belonging or appertaining to the office. And we do hereby authorize, empower, and command you, as our representative, to exercise and perform all and singular the powers and directions contained in certain letters patent under our Great Seal of Canada, bearing date the 8th day of September, in the year of our Lord, 1947, constituting the office of Governor General and Commander-in-Chief in and over Canada, or in any other letters patent, adding to, amending, or substituted for the same. And further, we do hereby appoint that so soon as you shall have taken the prescribed oaths and have entered upon the duties of your office, this our present commission shall come into effect. And we do hereby command all and singular, our officers, ministers, and loving subjects in Canada, and all others whom these presents may concern, to take due notice hereof, and to give their ready obedience accordingly. Given under our royal hand and under our Great Seal of Canada, this 21st day of July, in the year of our Lord 2021, and in the 70th year of our reign.
Le document qui vient d'être lu, qui nomme Mary May
The
Simon,
document just
est la
read,
pierre angulaire de la
commissioning
cérémonie
Mary May
d'aujourd'hui.
Simon, is the cornerstone
Il
of today's
témoigne de la
ceremony,
confiance de la reine
signaling
et de
the
notre
Queen's
confiance
confidence
collective
and our
dans sa
collective
nomination
trust
au
in her
poste de
appointment as Governor
général
General
et dans sa capacité
and in her
à
ability to
s'acquitter de
carry
cette
out this
tâche
solemn
solennelle.
duty.
Le très honorable
The Right Honorable Richard Wagner
lui fera
will
maintenant
now
prêter
administer
serment.
the oaths.
The oaths are administered in the presence of members of the Queen's Privy Council for Canada. Ms. Janice Charette, Interim Clerk of the Privy Council, will now present the Chief Justice of Canada with the text of the oaths.
Do you, Mary May Simon, swear that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors?
I do.
So help you God. Vous, Mary May Simon,
Do you, Mary May Simon, swear that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors?
Oui, je le jure.
I do.
Ainsi Dieu vous soit en aide.
So help you God.
Do you swear that you will well and truly serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in the office of Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada, and duly and impartially administer justice therein?
I do.
So help you God. Jurez-vous de servir fidèlement et loyalement
Do you swear that you will well and
II,
truly serve Her Majesty
en
Queen
qualité
Elizabeth
de gouverneur
II
général
in the office
et
of Governor
commandant en
General
chef du Canada,
and Commander-in-Chief of
et
Canada,
administrerez-vous
and
la
duly
justice
and
de
impartially
façon
administer
convenable
justice
et impartiale?
therein?
Oui, je le jure.
I do.
Ainsi Dieu vous soit en aide.
So help you God.
Do you swear that you will well and truly serve Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II in the office of Keeper of the Great Seal of Canada?
I do.
So help you God. Jurez-vous de servir fidèlement et
Do you
loyalement
swear
Sa
that you
Majesté
will
la
well
Reine
and
Élisabeth
truly
II
serve Her Majesty
en
Queen
qualité
Elizabeth
de
II
garde du Grand
in
Sceau
the
du
office of
Canada?
Keeper of the Great Seal of Canada?
Oui, je le jure.
I do.
Ainsi Dieu vous soit en aide.
So help you God.
La gouverneure générale, ainsi que le juge en chef, le premier ministre et la greffière du Conseil privé par intérim procéderont maintenant à la
The
signature
Governor
du
General
registre des serments.
will now proceed to sign the register.
In the Privy Council Oath Registry as evidence that the new Governor General has duly taken the oath of allegiance and the oath of office on this day of July 26, 2021.
Félicitations, Excellences. Congratulations, Excellencies.
Please rise. Veuillez vous lever. Distingués invités,
Honored guests, Canadians, I am honored to introduce the Governor General of Canada,
the Right Honorable Mary May Simon.
Is now Her Excellency, the 30th Governor General of Canada, and the first Indigenous person to hold that role as an Inuk woman. There is a 21-gun salute taking place near Parliament Hill. The flag of the Governor General has now been raised on Parliament Hill, and Mary Simon has taken her official spot there in that seat, where she will do other things, read the speech from the throne when needed, for instance.
Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
I think we may be waiting here for the end of the 21-gun salute. This obviously is a ceremony unlike any other, in part because of COVID. There are very few people in the Senate chamber today, only 44 people, just a couple of members of Mary Simon's family. The rest of them are dignitaries, ministers of the Crown, and others. Other people watching from home, watching from Rideau Hall. And of course, it is remarkable and different because of the strong presence of Indigenous culture and music that has been throughout this ceremony.
Born in St. Boniface, Manitoba, Andrina Turenne is an established singer-songwriter with strong ties to her Métis and Francophone roots. Honored guests, please welcome Ms. Turenne, who will be performing En plein cœur mai.
C'est en plein cœur du mois de mai, sur la rivière Saskatchewan, que les gens libres, les bois brûlés, pour se défendre, ont pris les armes. En plein cœur mai, quand tout fleurit, aux abords de la Saskatchewan, sang rouge métis tache la prairie, où devait fait pousser foin, blé, avoine en plein Carmé. 100 ans plus tard, du sang versé par les gardiens. Moi, le métis me souvient encore aux abords de la Saskatchewan. Aux abords de la Saskatchewan, en plein Carmé, on prit nos armes. On s'est battu contre les Gardiens sur la rivière Saskatchewan. Aux abords de la Saskatchewan, en plein Carmé, on prit nos armes. On s'est battu contre les Gardiens sur la rivière Saskatchewan. L'histoire est en écriture. On démonte les clôtures, on se tourne vers le soleil et le futur. L'histoire s'écrit au présent, ne perdons plus un moment. Tout ce qu'on crée, on le donne aux enfants.
Le gouverneur général décerne des distinctions honorifiques.
Officially created by Her Majesty the Queen, Canadian honors are presented by the Governor General to recognize those who have demonstrated excellence, courage, or exceptional dedication to service in ways that bring special credit to this country. Most Canadian honors are administered by the Chancellery of Honors, which is part of the Office of the Secretary to the Governor General. A newly installed Governor General becomes Chancellor of the Order of Canada, the Order of Military Merit, the Order of Merit of the Police Forces, and head of the Canadian Heraldic Authority.
I now invite the Secretary to the Governor General to present to Her Excellency the Collars of Office of the National Orders and the Canadian Heraldic Authority. The Collar of the Chancellor of the Order of Canada, the Collar of the Chancellor of the Order of Military Merit, the Collar of the Chancellor of the Order of Merit of the Police Forces, and finally, the Collar of the Head of the Canadian Heraldic Authority.
I am honored to accept these collars. Je suis honoré d'accepter.
I am honored to accept these collars.
Le Grand Sceau du Canada est un symbole apposé sur tous
The
les
Great
documents
Seal
d'État.
of Canada is a symbol used on all state documents conferring authority and authenticity. Used on proclamations and commissions, it provides the formal sanction of the Crown to all state documents. The current seal dates back to the beginning of the reign of Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada.
I now invite the Registrar General of Canada, the Honorable François-Philippe Champagne, to present the Governor General with the Great Seal of Canada. Mr. Champagne is accompanied by the Deputy Registrar General, Mr. Simon Kennedy.
I entrust you with the Great Seal of Canada for safekeeping. Je vous confie la garde
I entrust
du
you with the Great
Grand
Seal
Sceau
of
du
Canada for safekeeping.
Singer-songwriter Tim Baker, a proud Newfoundlander and principal songwriter and lead vocalist of the multi-award-winning band Hey Rosetta, will now perform one of his solo songs, Songbirds, which highlights themes of freedom and confidence. Veuillez accueillir Monsieur Baker.
Like a fool in a foolish coat, trying to be cool, but just being cold. I have seen the saddest thing, not you crying, but that you're hiding it from me. Just be as you like, on sing like a bird, soar and sing in flight. No, be free, but connected to the sky, on sing like a bird, soar and sing in flight. I saw you shrink back into your sleeves. I saw you shrink until you disappeared from me. What do you hide from? And what hides from us? What kind of colors have we covered up and lost? No, be free, just be as you like, on sing like a bird to the oncoming light. No, be free, but connected to the sky, and sing like a bird, and soar and sing and fly. Sing like
Honored guests, the Prime Minister of Canada, le Premier Ministre du Canada, le très honorable Justin.
The Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau.
Your Excellencies, Mr. Chief Justice, Mr. Speaker, distinguished guests and friends, let me begin by recognizing that we are on the traditional land of the Algonquin people. We acknowledge them as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. Votre Excellence, Madame Simon.
Your Excellency, Ms. Simon, it's an honor to be here today as you become representative of Her Majesty the Queen in Canada, our 30th Governor General.
In Canada, perhaps more than any other place on earth, we're defined by our diversity. We're still a country that is, in many ways, young. And yet, Indigenous peoples have called this place home for millennia. We are a country of vast Arctic spaces and busy city skylines, of prairies and coasts, of French and English, and of Indigenous languages. This is a big place. This is a diverse place. And so we need people like Ms. Simon, because we need people who build bridges and bring us together. An officer of the Order of Canada and of the Ordre National du Québec, a leader in reaching Canada's first land claims agreement, and now Canada's first Indigenous Governor General. Your Excellency, your remarkable achievements are an example of what it means to build bridges in pursuit of the Canada to which we all aspire. Un Canada de diversité et d'inclusion.
A Canada of diversity and inclusion. A place where everyone is respected and where everyone can thrive. That is within our reach, thanks to leaders like Ms. Simon. So many youth saw their lives change for the better, thanks to Ms. Simon's work in the area of education. And parents will remember her as a courageous spokeswoman who fought to have Indigenous rights included in the laws of our country. The world recognized her work as ambassador for the protection of the Inuit Nunangat, and we will closely follow her commitment to the fight against climate change throughout the country.
You remind us that true leadership is not measured in the honors or distinctions stacked up behind someone's name, although today you take on yet another title among many. Rather, true leadership is measured in what you do for those around you. It is measured in an ability to reach out and build a brighter future for all, not just for a lucky few. In this moment of unprecedented change, of rebuilding from the pandemic, of fighting the climate crisis, of walking forward on the path of reconciliation, we need your vision of a stronger Canada for everyone. A vision, as you say, of collective progress towards building a more inclusive, just, and equitable society. En ce jour où notre pays franchit cette étape importante,
today, as our country takes this major step, I am certain that we have gained a leader who will ensure that the changes that we see are built on hope, justice, and a better future that each and every one of us will benefit from. Your Excellency, it will be an honor to work with you as you make this historic function yours. Thank you.
Nakumik.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Thank you, Prime Minister. Maintenant, écoutons
Now, let's listen to Hymne à l'espoir, a song from Edith Butler, Angèle Arsenault, and Lise Aubu. The musical piece will be performed by a rising star with a promising future.
She conquered the hearts of many Canadians with her sparkling voice and personality earlier this year. Please welcome Nounou Zucchini.
Un jour peut-être, nous deviendrons de vrais amis. Je vois déjà que tout s'éclaire du côté de la nuit. Un jour peut-être, tout l'univers sera payé. Je vois déjà venir la fête du côté de la vie. L'espoir à nos fenêtres, l'espoir qu'un jour peut-être le soleil pourra se lever du côté de la liberté. Un jour peut-être, bien au-delà de notre peine, nous laisserons partir la haine du côté de la pluie. Un jour peut-être, nous n'aurons plus de nostalgie. Le temps s'arrête dans ma tête du côté de l'oubli. L'espoir à nos fenêtres, l'espoir qu'un jour peut-être le soleil pourra se lever du côté de la liberté. Un jour peut-être, plus de soldats et plus de rage. Nous n'irons plus jouer courage du côté de la peur. Un jour peut-être, quand nous aurons brisé nos chaînes, je te dirai comment je t'aime du côté de mon cœur. Un jour peut-être, tout l'univers sera payé. Je vois déjà venir la fête du côté de la vie. L'espoir à nos fenêtres, l'espoir qu'un jour peut-être le soleil pourra se lever du côté de la liberté.
All right, Her Excellency is about to give her first address to the nation as Governor General. Parts of her speech will be in Inuktitut, a first by a Governor General. And we are going to let you hear her speak in her first language without translation. Of course, if you want to listen to the whole ceremony in Inuktitut, you can do so on our Facebook page or cbcnews.ca. Here now, the Governor General, the 30th of this country, Mary Simon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, or it's still morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
With great respect, I would like to acknowledge that today we are standing on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, who have lived and cared for this part of the world for thousands of years. Prime Minister Trudeau, thank you for your faith in me and for your commitment to reconciliation. I am honored, humbled, and ready to be Canada's first Indigenous Governor-General. Je suis honorée et c'est avec humilité que je suis prête à devenir le premier Gouverneur général autochtone du Canada. Nakok sa punga ulumi ang ayok kamarimik Canada ang ayok kamaringanik tiliyaw na haramatak kunga poktunak pamot kikatoksuni kuin mitawa nitakyo akianimiumik. Where we gather here today is of enormous significance to me. 39 years ago, when this was the Government Conference Center, I worked with other Indigenous leaders and First Ministers to have our rights affirmed in the Constitution of Canada. That moment made this one possible. Daitumane akagoy 39 ani goksimalik tilugit bihujak jualagila goksimagattatak kani idlok juame taikwa tili iltaksiyaw ni halagata kanyado bihujak juangani daitumani tanang tawlok simayu angayok kamarinyon takani illumi katinga magatjuasuta. I also wanted to offer my heartfelt gratitude to Her Majesty the Queen for placing her trust and confidence in me. I know she has an abiding love for this magnificent country. And to my family, thank you to my husband, Whit, to my children, Richard, Lewis, and Carol, and to my stepchildren, Rhonda, Diane, and Whitney, and to my siblings, of course, all my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. All of you have given me strength, purpose, love, and inspiration over the course of my life. To the Canadian Armed Forces, I am honored to be taking on the role as Commander-in-Chief of Canada. Thank you for embodying the meaning of sacrifice, valor, and service on behalf of all Canadians. Your conviction and courage is of the highest order and represents the very best of all of us. I'm looking forward to meeting those serving in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Canadian Rangers and other reserve units in the days ahead. Tili yaulaw sunga tusaktaw si malaktilugu huyalitsia honga nakukmisiak sunga lukanata miulimat ubaning sa puminraksutit ubano allahat tamata. Since the announcement of my appointment, I have been deeply touched by the responses from Canadians who have reached out to me. I have heard from Canadians who describe a renewed sense of possibility for our country and hope that I can bring people together. I have heard from Canadians who have challenged me to bring a new and renewed purpose to the office of the Governor-General to help Canadians deal with the issues we are facing. Des Canadiens m'ont donné le soutien de mon engagement à apprendre le français. Plusieurs m'ont même offert l'aide. I have heard from Canadians who have expressed their support in my commitment to learn French and have even offered to assist me in my training. and I have heard from Canadians who see Rideau Hall as the People's Hall, reflecting the values, aspirations, and diversity of our great Canadian family. I am truly grateful for these words of support and guidance. As Governor General, I am fully committed to setting and maintaining the highest possible standard of work and ethics in all aspects of my duties. En tant que gouverneur général, je m'engage à respecter les normes éthiques les plus élevées. Sometimes I have a little trouble pronouncing, but I'm learning. Aujourd'hui marque une journée importante et historique pour le Canada. Today is an important and historic day for Canada, but my story to these chambers began very far from here. I was born Mary Jeannie May in Arctic Quebec, now known as Nunavik. My Inuk name is Ningiukarlak, and Prime Minister, it means bossy little old lady. I spent my adolescence in Nunavik, living a very traditional lifestyle with my parents. My mom, Nancy, was Inuk, my father, Bob, and my grandmother, Jeannie, who was also Inuk, who was from the south, managed our local Hudson's Bay Company post. Many months out of the year, we lived on the land, traveling by dog team and boat, hunting, fishing, and gathering food. Over the years, I have exchanged stories with Canadians about favorite childhood memories. This is mine, lying in our family tent along the George River on a bed of spruce boughs and caribou skins, listening to the early morning sound of birds and the crunch of snow under the feet of our dog team. What I value most about my upbringing was my parents teaching my siblings and I how to live in two worlds, the Inuit world and the non-Inuit southern world. This foundation of core values has both served and shaped me throughout my life, and I believe helped me get to the important turning point as a young girl when I stopped being afraid. It took time before I gained the self-confidence to assert myself and my beliefs in the non-Indigenous world. But when I came to understand that my voice had power and that others were looking to me to be their voice, I was able to let go of my fear. Ammalu inut suta inut winnaw suta ukhawsivut ilokhosittinut pitutsimallagittuq ammalu taimangat inurusilagne lauqsimagatta uvattinut sivumappaliagutiusimayok. My first language, Inuktitut, is the language that defines Inuit as a people and is the foundation of our very survival. My second language, English, became a gateway to the world beyond. And now I am committed to adding Canada's other official language, French. Je m'engage à apprendre l'autre langue officielle du Canada, le français. At this point in our shared history, it is clear that many languages are part of the fabric of our nation, as are the stories of those who come to Canada in search of a new life. Later in my early 20s, living in Montreal, I worked for the CBC and found myself sight translating the news and explaining to Inuit listeners across the Arctic the news stories from around the world. But there has always been another guiding force in my life: the importance of promoting healing and wellness through all forms of education, from creating public policy to legislative reform, to improving schools, school curricula, to advocating for human rights. I have had the pleasure in my career of traveling extensively to all provinces and territories. What I remember most is not the meetings or conferences, but the mix of culture and heritage that make Canada a beacon to the world. I will never forget the selfless work of Canadians in every corner of this country. Every day, inside small community halls, school gyms, Royal Canadian Legions, places of worship, and in thousands of community service organizations, there are ordinary Canadians doing extraordinary things. As Governor General, I will never lose sight of this, that our selflessness is one of our greatest strengths as a nation. Canada is an Arctic nation. Our Arctic is one of the most unique places on the planet. From spring geese to winter darkness to some of the largest wildlife migrations anywhere on Earth. Our north is also a lived-in homeland for Inuit, First Nations, and Métis people. The Arctic matters a lot to Canada and to the world. Canada has championed the creation of the Arctic Council and the Central Arctic Ocean Fishing Agreement. We have settled modern treaties with the Inuit. We have passed the Arctic Waters Pollution Prevention Act to assure sovereignty over the Northwest Passage and develop a circumpolar dimension to the foreign policy, which recognizes that human security must include environmental security. For many years, Canada has experienced a disproportionate level of impacts from climate change because the Arctic is warming faster than almost anywhere else on the planet. The Arctic represents nearly 40% of our landmass and may be free of summer sea ice in the coming decades. The twin global crisis of nature destruction and climate change are undoubtedly the challenge of our time. For evidence, we need only look at the Arctic and what has happened this past month across the country. The devastating impacts of forest fires, prolonged droughts, and record heat waves. I believe that in order to have a healthy future, we must reset our thinking to understand that nature contains and creates our climate. Our climate allows society to be possible, and within our society is our economy. As Governor General, I will promote and recognize leading examples of community and Indigenous-driven conservation and of climate action that are making a real difference and can inspire other Canadians to do the same. I hope to promote these examples of Canadian leadership nationally and around the world. I have always viewed Canada as a metaphor for a family. À mes yeux, le Canada est une grande famille. Canada isu makhala ramatana nunakjuavut Canada unaraktavut ilagi limango yaktilugu isu magisura. As members of our large and diverse Canadian family, we have to replace the hurt with hope and find the grace and humility to stand together and move towards a more just and equitable future. Addressing mental health and wellness within our families, our schools, our workplaces, and our frontline services is hard and necessary work. But think of the possibilities for stronger, healthier, and more prosperous communities. I would like to acknowledge all Canadians who have sacrificed their own safety by providing essential services during the pandemic so that the rest of us could stay safe. You stepped up when the rest of us were told to stay home. Thank you. As Governor General, I am committed to using this moment in our country's history to build on the work of destigmatizing mental health, so it is viewed through the same lens as physical ailments and receive the same attention, compassion, and understanding. La santé mentale sera une question importante pour moi. Il faut continuer à éliminer les préjugés. Since the publication of the Truth and Reconciliation Report 6 years ago, we have learned as a country that we need to learn the real history of Canada. Embracing this truth makes us stronger as a nation, unites Canadian society, and teaches our kids that we must always do our best, especially when it is hard. The discoveries of unmarked graves on the grounds of residential schools in recent weeks has horrified me, along with all Canadians. A lot of people think that reconciliation will be completed through projects and services. All Canadians deserve access to services. My view is that reconciliation is a way of life and requires work every day. Reconciliation is getting to know one another. La réconciliation nous invite à établir de nouvelles relations. As stated in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, reconciliation must support Aboriginal peoples as they heal from destructive legacies of colonization that have wreaked such havoc in their lives. We are reminded daily that even though diversity is a core Canadian value, our country must do more to respect all languages, cultures, ethnicities, religions, and way of living. As Governor General, I will embody our nation's commitment to diversity and acceptance. Je m'engage à représenter tous les Canadiens. I've always believed the Right Honourable King Campbell held the country up to the correct standard when she said, "Canada is the homeland of equality, justice, and tolerance." Recognizing that 1/5 of all Canadians were born somewhere else, it is more important than ever to make sure we live up to this commitment. To meet this moment as Governor General, I will strive to hold together the tension of the past with the promise of the future in a wise and thoughtful way. Our society must recognize together our moments of regret alongside those that give us pride, because it creates space for healing, acceptance, and the rebuilding of trust. I will strive to build bridges across the diverse backgrounds and cultures that reflect our great country's uniqueness and promise. I pledge to meet all Canadians. I pledge to meet Canadians in all provinces and territories to learn firsthand what people are facing and what could be done to make their lives better. On the strength of those Governors General who served before me, I commit to Canadians that I will move forward with humility and purpose to meet this moment in our shared history. With an eye and our dog Neva are excited and honored that Rideau Hall will be our home, for our family home. We also plan to spend time living and working at the Citadel in the city of Quebec City. I am truly honored by this call to service and will do my best each and every day to be worthy of it. Je suis honorée d'être gouverneur général. Je ferai de mon mieux tous les jours pour être à la hauteur. Nakormik ilun nasi takunga tiliyaunara khulagitsetara amalu nakuwadlagatsugu takwa angayokhamari tilisimmatatakani. Thank you, merci, miigwech nakormik.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Merci, Excellence. Honored guests, distingués invités, our ceremony is now drawing to a close. In just a few moments, Her Excellency and the official party will depart the chamber. We ask that you remain at your seat until the procession has left the Senate chamber. In a moment, our national anthem will be sung by Marie-Josée Laure. Née à Haïti, Madame Laure a
Born in
grandi au
Haiti,
Québec,
Ms. Laure grew up in Quebec, where she began her professional career as a singer.
A generous performer with a warm tone, she has earned many accolades in her career. Veuillez vous lever.
Please rise for the singing of O Canada.
Please rise for the singing of O Canada.
Okay, and with that, Mary Simon becomes Canada's 30th Governor General. The official portion of the ceremony inside the Red Chamber is over. She is going to, after this, make her way to the National War Memorial, where she will lay a wreath as the Commander-in-Chief of Canada's Armed Forces. We'll talk a little bit more about the various messages she had in her speech to many Canadians. But as she walks by me here in the hallway of the Senate, down the red carpet near where I am, I'm going to have to be quiet. The performers who were part of the ceremony are lined up here to greet the new Governor General and her husband, Whit Fraser, as well as the Prime Minister and his wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau. She did say, one of the things that stood out to me in her speech is that many people have written to her and told her that they see with this a renewed sense of possibility.
Distinguished invités, nous vous remercions.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love the opening.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Love the opening. Love the opening. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, David. Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful.
All right, and the Governor General now is making her way slowly over to the National War Memorial as the Prime Minister and his wife and other dignitaries thank the many entertainers, musicians that were here today representing Métis, First Nations, and Inuit, and also Quebec. It was the first time that Mary Simon has spoken to Canadians as Governor General, and she touched on a number of themes that she wants to take on as Governor General, whether it be reconciliation, which she said is a way of life and requires work every day. She talked about how she wants to build on destigmatizing mental health, something she has worked on throughout her career. She talked extensively about climate change and how she will look for examples in Indigenous communities and other communities of people making a change and fighting climate change. And she talked about how she would work with humility and purpose to meet this moment. She tackled the fact that she doesn't speak French head on, saying that she is learning, and talked about the importance of her speaking her own mother tongue, Inuktitut, and that languages are a part of the fabric of this nation. And then perhaps in a very funny moment, she told us that her name in Inuktitut actually means busy little old lady, and warned the Prime Minister that that's what he will have to contend with. Bossy little old lady. And that's what he will have to contend with. As we wait for the new Governor General to make her way to the National War Memorial, let me bring in Paul Kwesa. He's an MLA and Speaker of Kwasa, Paul Kwasa, an MLA and Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Nunavut. He's also the former Premier of the territory, one of the chief negotiators of the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement, and he has been friends with the new Governor General since the 70s. They've worked together on an awful lot of projects. Ulakut, Paul Kwesa, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Ulakut, thank you for having me.
All right, well, we're so glad to have you. I'm sure you were watching. How are you feeling after viewing that, Paul Kwesa?
Very hard to exactly say the right word, but very proud to be a Canadian, very proud to be an Inuk, and it's I think it's a great moment for all of us, whether you live in the north or the south.
What was it like to hear your language, Inuktitut, spoken in the Red Chamber by the Governor General?
Well, it's a magic moment for all of us, I believe. Again, we always have to remember the fact that even before English and French ever came to this country, here we were living in our own time and speaking and living our culture. And I think it's a great moment for rest of Canadians to see who the original people were. And I think it's a great time for all of us to think about how can we work together much more.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Paul Kwesa, that it is also important for reconciliation? You heard Mary Simon there talk about how she believes reconciliation is a way of life, something you have to do every day, and that means all Canadians, of course, not just Indigenous people. Do you think that this moment is also part of that reconciliation?
Well, I believe that is so true. This is the right moment, the right time for an Indigenous, especially an Inuk person, to become a Governor General, for the Queen of our country to recognize Indigenous people as as a Governor General. And certainly, I think this certainly will be helping us a lot in moving forward. Reconciliation to me means a lot of different things. And certainly, this is part of reconciliation. Putting an Indigenous person, Inuk, as a Governor General of Canada. And this, as I said, is a very proud moment to be a Canadian. And I think we all have to accept the fact that reconciliation can mean a lot of different things.
What else does it mean to you? This, as you said, it's an important step, but if there was something else that you wanted to see as an important step along the road to reconciliation, what else would that be, Paul Kwesa?
Well, certainly I think Canada has been negotiating land claims over a good many years. Again, an agreement, a land claims agreement is a form of a reconciliation. I believe as Indigenous peoples, the language has always been very important. And as our new Governor General stated very clearly, the language itself is so vitally important. I think it is high time that in Canada, we don't only have 2 languages. We have a lot of different languages, especially Indigenous languages. And I think it is high time that we do talk about Indigenous languages as being the language of Canada as equal to the other 2 that came to our homeland way back.
You were a chief negotiator for a land agreement. Mary Simon negotiated one of the first land agreements, land claims as well. I was joking there that she explained to the Prime Minister that her name in Inuktitut means bossy little old lady. So I wonder what kind of lady is she as a negotiator and someone who is a fierce advocate for people?
Yes, she's very understanding. She can listen. She can respond intelligently. She's been a diplomat for Inuit and rest of Canada for a good many years. So, with that in mind, this is something that I think Canadians will be very proud of.
Did you ever think in your lifetime that you would see this, Paul?
Well, it has always been in our mind that, I think it is high time our country fully recognizes Indigenous people as the first people of this country. And I think this moment today signifies that Canada can, in fact, recognize Indigenous people as the first people of this country. And I think this is a great moment for all, not just Canada, for all the Commonwealth countries in this world.
Anything you'd like to say to Mary Simon in Inuktitut, Paul?
Aksuunila upigittiarpattigit inuulluta aksuaru makippaallерутигиниартавут икаютсиарниарпаттигит аяортоқаттарниарпаттигит кояннамеераару upigittiarpattigit Mary Simon.
Can I ask what you said?
As Indigenous Inuit people, we are so very proud of Mary becoming the Governor General of Canada. And I think we will be there to support her, to be with her, and be a proud Indigenous population in Canada.
Paul Kwesa, so nice of you to make the time for us today. Matna, thank you. Nice to speak with you, sir. As we leave Paul Kwesa there and his reaction to Mary Simon becoming the 30th Governor General of this country, the first Indigenous person to hold that job, let me show you a moment in Kuujjuaq where Mary Simon grew up and some of the people there reacting to this historic event.
Canadians, I am honored to introduce the Governor General of Canada,
the Right Honourable Mary May Simon.
So very meaningful, obviously, for many people across the country, but perhaps nowhere more so than in Kuujjuaq, that small town of 2,500 people in northern Quebec, where Mary Simon spent part of her life anyway, and a lot of people there feeling very proud today, of course. There are only 5 living people in Canada who can take us inside the head of a Governor General and what it's like to do the job, and one of them joins me right now. Hello to former Governor General from 1999 to 2005, Adrienne Clarkson. Ms. Clarkson, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Rosie. You look tanned.
Oh, yes. Well, I squeezed in a little vacation in the midst of all this. So tell me, Ms. Clarkson, what did you make of Mary Simon's speech and her message to Canadians today?
I thought her speech was marvelous. I thought it was inclusive. I thought it brought to fore all that she has been as a person, and is a foretaste of what we will have as a Governor General for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I hope, because Mary is an extraordinary person. And it's about time that Canada had an Indigenous Governor General. The New Zealanders have had 2 Maoris. Well, they've had first Maori 35 years ago, a generation ago, and they are about to install another Maori, a woman this time, shortly. And so Mary is an experienced person. She's a diplomat. She has worked with government. I love those clips that showed her dealing with Pierre Elliott Trudeau over the repatriation of the Constitution. And of course, I've known Mary and met her when we were both at the CBC. You know, a lot of people work at the CBC because it's the national network, and she was in radio, and her husband, Whit Fraser, also worked for CBC. So that's a connection for me. But my feeling is that she talked about the diversity. When I first was on television in 1965, and in 66, I went north for the first time, everybody came out to see me. Inuit came out to see me because I was the only person that looked like them on television. And that's not true anymore. After 55 years, we don't have that. I realize how wonderful it is that Mary, who understands everything about how to get things done, how to do things with a great simplicity and a great directness and a good deal of warmth. And I'm very hopeful that this will be a landmark Governor Generalship because she's the first, and it's always something to be the first, but also she has something in her which I think will draw people to her. The general public is seeing her for the first time and hearing her, and you just have to hear the voice and the way she approaches things. She's quiet, but not reticent. She's humble, but not unsure of herself. And that's really, I think, a remarkable thing. I think we're very, very lucky to have her. I was very pleased that she mentioned the armed forces. She did that in a very direct way. And I think that we need healing there. When she talked about reconciliation, she understands deeply. That was a very carefully brought in part of the speech, to say how important it was that she understood it. And I think it's about time that Canada understood that we can have somebody who is an Indigenous person who understands what the world is like. We have many, many Indigenous leaders. I'm sure that the committee went through a lot of them and thought of all of the people. We have leaders in the Indigenous community, and Mary is the one who emerged as the one for the moment. And that is what history is about, is the person comes into the moment.
Okay.
And
Ms. Clarkson,
wonderful.
I'm just going to interrupt you if you don't mind, just for one moment, because we are going to let the main network go. If you're watching us on CBC television, we'll get you back to Olympic coverage. Tokyo Today with Andrew Chang and Perdita Felicien starts in a moment, but you can keep watching this special coverage as Mary Simon becomes Canada's 30th Governor General on CBC News Network, streaming online in English and in Inuktitut. Thanks for watching here. CBC News Network coverage continues right now. That is the Governor General, Canada's new Governor General, signing more documents as part of it. And joining me now is a former Governor General, Adrienne Clarkson. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Ms. Clarkson. I know you understand getting off the main network and going to News Network. That's part of the job of a broadcaster. I did want to ask you about the official trip you took with Mary Simon in 2004. I think you went to northern parts of Russia and Finland, and I wondered if you had any good stories from that trip.
Well, she was terrific because we had a wonderful group with Sela Watt-Kluche, Peter Ernick, who was the commissioner of the Northwest of Nunavut. We had about 6 or 7 people, and they were wonderful because there was drumming, and they took part in all the discussions, and then they had separate discussions, each of them with other people. So we had a real sense of what the Arctic was. And of course, Mary had already been ambassador to the Arctic Council, been ambassador to Denmark, was a very, very knowledgeable person about how to get things done in the machinery of government. And that's why I think as Governor General, she will do extremely well, not just because of her philosophy and what she's learned, but because she knows how things work. And the Governor General's job is very, very intricate. It's as Walter Bagehot said, you have to advise and you have to warn people who have been elected through our method of government, our responsible government. And you have to be able to do that. She'll be able to do that. I know that. And I loved her bringing in the climate as well. You know, my first trip to the north in 2000, they told me in Rankin Inlet that it wasn't cold enough to keep an outdoor hockey rink going all through the winter in Rankin Inlet, and that's 21 years ago. And so she knows how important that is, how important our North is, how important the Northwest Passage is. And that's why the North was one of my themes as Governor General, and I'm just thrilled to think that an Inuk is going to be Governor General. That just delights me. And of course, I think she handled the French. She says she's learning it. She speaks it as well as many of the Governors General in the past, if I may say so, and that she is committed to learning it and will be able to do it. She's a very determined, bossy old lady.
As we learned is what her name means. I'm sure that's probably what my name means too. What would you say to Mary? What would you say to Mary Simon today, Ms. Clarkson? What would you say to her?
I would say, first of all, congratulations. And then there is such a thing as destiny. There is such a thing as meaning. There is such a thing as your life leading you to a certain path and leading you through and out. And I think I would wish her the best and also God's blessing upon her.
Any bit of advice, any things that to watch out for, because it can be a challenging role. Any challenge sort of advice to give her?
I think she's well surrounded with wonderful people at Rideau Hall. There's a great staff there. She has a wonderful secretary to the Governor General, and I was so pleased to see Melanie Wong, who I don't think you ever identified. Melanie Wong is the Director General of Ceremony at Heritage, and Melanie Wong was in the programming department when I was Governor General for 6 years, and I know her intimately and well. She's brilliant, and she will be also of great help. So I think that Mary will be supported both at Rideau Hall and in the machinery of government in the civil service, and I think all the signs are right.
And have some fun too, right? Because it can be fun.
Oh yes, and she will have fun. I mean, she has a great sense of humor, and you can see that she has that in her. And then she has her family also living in Ottawa, which is great. And Rideau Hall will become a family home and a place where people will be welcomed and enjoy the ceremonies, which she will be the person who oversees all of that. And it will, she'll bring life and a kind of meaning to it that I think we've been longing for. I think Canadians are longing for something like this. They didn't know it, but you know, it's just the right thing at the right time. And now we know when we see Mary and looking at her today, and we're both older. I'm 82 now, and I think I look at her and I think, you know, we didn't know a long time ago, we didn't know 40 or 50 years ago what was going to happen to us. And now she's come to her destiny, and I wish her only the best.
Lovely words, Adrienne Clarkson, as always. You don't look 82, but thank you for making the time for us. It's so nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you, Rosie.
Okay, take good care. Thank you so much. That's Adrienne Clarkson, the former Governor General. As you can see there, the present Governor General, just making some small talk with the Prime Minister and with her husband there, Whit Fraser, the usher of the Black Rod, and her aide de camp. They're now going to make their way over to the National War Memorial. We've talked before about how one of the important roles of the Governor General is to be the Commander-in-Chief for the Canadian Armed Forces. The Canadian Armed Forces, of course, going through their own problems at this time, dealing with various allegations of sexual assault against high-ranking members. So morale, definitely an issue, and perhaps something the Governor General there can help with. They'll bring in Ashley Burke, who I think has made her way to the National War Memorial also. She did actually speak about, well, here she is, meeting the Acting Chief of the Defense Staff, Wayne Eyre. I'll just listen into that for a moment before I bring you in, Ashley.
Sir, I hand over. Your Excellency, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you. Very good. My pleasure. My honor. Excellency, Minister, good morning. Excellency. We'll just walk this way here. Beautiful ceremony.
Yeah. Oh, what a day. What a day. Oh, my friends.
But I am really... I know that. Your Excellency, speak about...
People there gathered on the street of Wellington. Mary Simon saying at one point some of her friends are there. It's just a short walk between here and the National War Memorial, where she will go and lay a wreath. And maybe I'll bring in Ashley here with the caveat that I might cut you off, Ashley, but this is also a difficult time, and this is some other reporting you've been doing about for the Canadian Armed Forces. The Acting Chief of the Defense Staff now, he's the third person to have the job in just a few months because of the controversy there.
Exactly. Mary Simon, one of her jobs will be to take the Prime Minister's advice at one point and to appoint a Chief of Defense Staff permanently in that role. She just met with Lieutenant General Wayne Eyre, who's there in an acting position because the two predecessors in that role are both under military police investigation. One of them, General Jonathan Vance, who's retired, he has been charged with obstruction of justice criminally this month. So, morale in the forces is low. There are people that have rose up the ranks that are walking away from their jobs right now because they are so discouraged. Part of her job, Mary Simon, as a Commander-in-Chief in Canada, will be to provide support and encouragement to Canadian Armed Forces members and their family members. Today, during her speech, she did say that she thanked the forces for their courage and their conviction, and she looked forward to meeting them. So a signal that that's something she's thinking about.
Yeah, and that is important, especially at a moment like this. She said that she's going to go and visit various bases. She also said, interestingly, that she plans to spend a significant amount of time at the Citadel in Quebec City, which is the other formal residence of the Governor General, this one located in the historic part of Quebec City. It's a beautiful building that's been rebuilt there as well. I'm actually surprised to see a fair number of people. I don't know where you are, Ashley, in relation to the monument, but there's a fair number of people out and about clapping.
There are, and I can actually see Mary Simon and her husband and everyone walking up the street right now. Soon behind me, she's going to be doing one of her first official duties as the Commander-in-Chief, and she's going to be inspecting the Guard of Honor. It's going to be much smaller this time, but a quarter of the size, 17 members. And as well after that, she's going to be laying some flowers on the Tomb of Unknown Soldier in commemoration of those who lost their lives. So this is one of her first official duties. As you mentioned, she'll also be traveling to bases and meeting personnel across the country during her time in office. She's just making her way up right now.
And as she arrives, the flag of the Governor General goes up, the Canadian flag goes down, and she'll be doing her first official inspection of the Guard here. As Ashley said, much smaller than we would normally see, certainly smaller than what will happen on Remembrance Day, but significant nonetheless. We'll just let her get to the dais and stand up there for this part.
Les forces armées canadiennes, salut royal, présentez, marche.
All right, that is the first inspection of the Guard that Mary Simon has done as Governor General there at the National War Memorial, making some small talk with members of the Ceremonial Guard and also now the band. After this, she is going to lay flowers or a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and then she's headed back to Rideau Hall, where many of her family members are gathered to welcome her back. They're going to have a little outdoor party, as per COVID rules. And many of them have been watching there. One of the things she said in her speech is that she and her husband, Whit, and their dog, Neva, who apparently is a golden retriever, are all very happy to move in to Rideau Hall, which is not just a lovely big house, but also on beautiful dog-friendly grounds as well. As we wait for her to depose these flowers, we'll maybe just wait for that to unfold. Then I'll bring back Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafont just for her thoughts on what we heard there from the first speech from the Governor General. Simon is there accompanied by the Acting Chief of the Defense Staff, Wayne Eyre. And of course, this is also, as we've said, an important part of the job of a Governor General, to be the Commander-in-Chief, the symbolic leader of the Canadian Armed Forces. And this is an important first signal to the Armed Forces of her dedication to that role. All right, and All right, as we watch the new Governor General depart now back to her official residence of Rideau Hall, let me bring back Mary Ellen Trepel-Lafont, or Akwi-Kwe, a law professor and director of UBC's Indian Residential School. Nice to speak with you again. Thanks for coming back, Mary Ellen. Appreciate it. I'm going to just selfishly say one part of the speech that really struck me, and then I'll get your take. One of the things that Mary Simon, the Governor General, Her Excellency, I should be calling her now, said in her speech that it was in this building, when it was previously the Government Conference Center, where she had negotiated very strongly, as we saw there, for the rights of Indigenous people to be inside the Constitution, affirmed by the Constitution, particularly women in that case. And she said in her speech, that moment made this one possible. And I don't know about you, but I found that a very powerful sort of full circle moment for the Governor General, but also for this country.
Yeah, I thought that her remarks were quite remarkable. I mean, they were very brief, but you could see the kind of impact that she's going to have as she now is, Her Excellency, the Governor General of Canada. She is a role model for Indigenous girls and women, and I think for all women, but also we see the humility. We see that she's been part of some very significant events in the recent history of Canada, but that she has both written history and now participate in it. So her remarks were quite interesting and poignant, but also it was a very humble approach. And you can see, I think we've missed that voice of a Governor General who can relate to Canadians, who can provide comfort to Canadians. And so to see her comments, particularly those ones, and some of the others she made today, really gives us a bit of a sense of the tone that's going to be set by her term in office.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear that she plans to build on what has been her sort of life's work, whether it be climate change, mental health, and reconciliation. What did you make of her words about reconciliation, about how it is, quote, a way of life?
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic, because reconciliation is very controversial in the Indigenous community, because there's a strong sense that it's been sort of hijacked to mean nothing. But she did mention the mass graves and the ongoing work of telling the truth of residential schools. And Canadians will be needing to walk with Indigenous people as this goes forward. So I think that those comments were very significant and sent a telescoped message for the future. I also thought that her comments on climate change and the Arctic, particularly mentioning how the conditions in the Arctic and climate are related to the economy. So what happens in the south affects what happens in the north. And we know in the Arctic, for instance, global warming is at twice the level. So you could see she has that profound understanding from years of work that I think will contribute much to the discussion in Canada in the years ahead.
Yeah, that's an awfully good point too. Tell me, how do you think the Governor General will sort of balance the role of not being political, of course, because she is not in a political position, but still pushing agendas, whether it be climate change or reconciliation? I mean, other Governor Generals have done it. It's certainly possible, but how do you think this Governor General will manage that balance?
I think she'll do very well, Rosemary, because as you can see, she's very plain spoken. She chooses her words carefully. She's very factual. She's not going to incite controversy, but she is going to weigh in and create some space for a different understanding of Canada that will potentially inform and support change. But she is going to be very careful, because she's very humble. You can see her own personal cultural humility about her role. Her French was pretty good, like when you consider, I was saying in our watching party, she speaks French better than Joe Clark. The Right Honorable Joe Clark, I should say. So we were ranking her French. But so she's off to the races on her French, and she reached out to new Canadians. And I think her humility will say a lot, and her presence. It's very comforting to have someone like Her Excellency Mary Simon in this role at this time for all Canadians, Indigenous and non-Indigenous.
Can I ask, before I let you go, was there any point at which it was emotional for you to watch?
Oh, we were just all really excited for her, and as I said, I mean, everything about the ceremony to have, in the past, there have been non-Indigenous people who use Indigenous drumming or other things. And while it's always very nice, it's not necessarily as meaningful. And you could see here that she's very much a person who has spent her life supporting creating space for Indigenous people in rooms where they haven't been, like those constitutional rooms and others. And now she will be creating space for Canadians to understand more deeply about the rights of Indigenous people and our experiences. And so I really want to stand her up today. And we were very excited. We all got up early, had a watching party, so we're very happy.
Well, I'm so glad you made time from the watching party before and after to join me, Marie-Hélène Turpel-Lafont. Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much. Nice to speak with you as always.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Okay, take good care. As you can see there, that is the driveway of Rideau Hall. You're perhaps familiar most with it when, the Prime Minister arrives for cabinet shuffles and whatnot. In this case, this is the Governor General, Mary Simon, the 30th Governor General, arriving here at Rideau Hall. I want to bring in someone who knows her pretty darn well. That's Annie Mae Popert, and that is Mary Simon's sister. Annie Mae, hello. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, hello, I can hear you okay.
Great, your sister's just pulling up here. I don't know if you want to yell and drag her over to you. How was that, Annie Mae, to watch that kind of thing happen to your sister? I can't imagine.
It was very amazing. I felt very proud. I thought of my mom and dad and my grandmother, and they would have been very proud of her. So we're just emotional and very happy.
I can imagine. Well, I can't imagine. It is really extraordinary. Mary Simon, there's 8 children in the family in total. All of you are very accomplished. I might just be quiet here for a second, Annie Mae, to let this unfold here, because you're going to have a hard time hearing me anyway. Okay, Annie, can you hear me over the bagpipes? I hope you can.
I can, yes, I can.
Okay, good. Tell me a little bit about your sister, because some Canadians are just starting to, many Canadians know her, of course, but some don't, and are just getting to know her today. What is she like?
Mary being my sister, she's perhaps, I look at her a little bit different than other people would, but she's a kind, compassionate person. She's very interesting to talk to, I can say, even as her sister. And so she's a wonderful human being, and she's done a lot of very good, amazing things throughout her life.
Well, I mean, I have to say, your whole family sounds pretty impressive, Annie. You talked about how you wished your mom and dad could see this moment. What do you think they would think about this?
I think they would be just extremely proud. My mom would be so proud that her daughter, who is of Inuit descendant, would be so very proud of her. And my father, who's from the South, would be extremely proud of her. It is not something that we ever thought could happen, and most of our fellow Inuit, I imagine, feel the same way, that we didn't think that one of our own would become come into this position.
Yeah, it's incredible. Your sister talked a lot about, in her other speech and today, about your grandma and how important she was to your family. Can you tell us a little bit about your grandma? your grandma Jeannie?
Yes, I can. She's not been on this earth for a very long time now, but she grew up very traditionally, long before there were communities that we have now in Nunavik. She lived on the land, and people traveled around to follow the animals, which was their source of survival. And so the Inuit were very nomadic, and she grew up in that environment. So did my mother. So we have a lot of, I think we've inherited a lot of things from both of them. Both my mother and my grandmother were unilingual in Inuktitut, so we didn't ever hear the English and also the French language when we were growing up.
Yeah, and your dad learned Inuktitut, from what I understand, which is pretty impressive. Let me tell you, as someone who's just trying to learn a couple words on the fly today, what was it like to hear Inuktitut in the Red Chamber, spoken inside that prestigious room, Annie?
It felt really surreal. I loved it. I love that things are changing for us. And other Indigenous people. It's a slow, painful road, but I think that there were some very significant events that have happened recently that we see as real progress for us.
Yeah. I see all the family there cheering and waving, and I've stolen you away from it. So I'll just ask you one more question, Annie. How are you going to celebrate? What's the plan this afternoon?
Well, the plan is to have a reception here in Ottawa at Rideau Hall. We'll certainly have our own celebration when the time comes for my sister to go up north, and there'll be another whole set of celebrations, and I'm sure all across Canada there's going to be celebrations.
Had you been inside Rideau Hall before, Annie?
Yes, I was. I had not been until yesterday.
Oh, good. And what are your thoughts? Will you be able to stay there and borrow a room once in a while?
I hope so. I mean, Mary and I are pretty close, so
good.
I hope that this will happen from time to time.
Yes, I hope she invites you down too. All right. Is she close to you there, or how far away is she if you turn around? If you dragged her over to you, no?
I don't think so. I don't see her now.
Let's see. All right.
Is she? No, it'd be really hard to drag her over.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, you wish her well, and I wish your family well on this really important day. Congratulations to all of you. Annie Poppert, thanks for making the time. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Have fun. Thank you. It's Annie May Poppert, sister of Her Excellency Mary Simon, who's right now greeting her extended family. Between her and her husband, Whit, they have 3 children each, so six children, as well as, she said, grandchildren and great-grandchildren at this point. She, of course, too, comes from a family of 8, so a very extensive family for the Governor General, all there to celebrate outside at some moment or another. Let me bring back, as we're watching Her Excellency Juanita Taylor, who's up in Kuujjuaq, the place where Mary Simon grew up much of the time. Juanita Taylor, I know you were hosting the radio special, so I don't know how many people were around you, but tell me what you made of it and what stood out for you.
Well, Rosie, what a historic day, a very historic day. And for people here in Kuujjuaq, the Inuit of Kuujjuaq, of Nunavik, of Inuit Nunangat, a very special day. And especially in Mary's speech, she mentioned her Inuktitut name, which is Ningiukadlak. And in Inuktitut, that translates to bossy little old lady. And I can tell you there was chuckles heard inside the Senate chambers, and there was chuckles heard inside the station. Just a bit of a tidbit in Inuit culture. Inuit children are born with an Inuktitut name, and they usually take on the characteristics of their name. So that tells you a lot about Her Excellency Governor General Mary Simon. Now, what I also took away from her speech is that she said that a turning point as a young girl for her when she was growing up here in Kuujjuaq is that that's when she stopped being afraid. She was gaining the self-confidence to assert herself and her beliefs in the non-Indigenous world. world. And I can tell you as well, Rosie, that there was a small viewing party here in Kuujjuaq as Her Excellency Governor General Mary Simon was at her installation ceremony. There was about 20 people who gathered at the community hall here, and everyone was silent watching the installation ceremony. And as soon as one of their own became the Governor General of Canada, there was cheers, there was people standing up and clapping, and there was also some tears, rightfully so.
Yeah. We actually have that tape because you guys are so good up there and so organized that you somehow fed us that tape just after it happened. Let me show people what you're talking about there, Juanita.
Canadians, I am honored to introduce the Governor General of Canada,
the Right Honourable Mary May Simon.
Yeah, a pretty memorable moment there in Kuujjuaq as people were watching, as you said, Juanita. Juanita Taylor, thank you so much for that. I know you did double duty. You worked very hard to get to Kuujjuaq. It's not easy to get there. I appreciate you being part of the radio and TV special today. Matna, thank you so much.
Matna, Rosie.
See, I only know the 2 words, so I'm just using them all the time as I try and pick up new words as we go through the special. So this now is Rideau Hall, where Mary Simon and her husband have moved right in, and these are the people closest to them, family and friends, who are going to be part of the small reception that will take place outside on the grounds of Rideau Hall, marking this significant day, both for Mary Simon personally and for this country, taking on its first Indigenous Governor General. A big moment at an important time too for this country as we deal with parts of our past that maybe we hadn't been ready to face. Let me bring back Ashley Burke, who was up at the War Memorial, the National War Memorial, as we wait for our final guests here. And Ashley, I'll just get some thoughts from you. I mean, you've covered Rideau Hall sort of. It became a beat for you, probably accidentally, and now we are on the other side sort of that story, where it is a fresh start for Rideau Hall, for the Governor General, for the government in many ways. Just your thoughts on that.
Exactly. There's people inside Rideau Hall that are really seeing this as they're in a transition period where they're looking to move forward. There were people that left during the workplace issues. They left behind careers they loved at Rideau Hall that are now returning. So it's really a period of restoration that's being described and a period of hope for employees there. I can tell you there's a lot of excitement about Mary Simon being appointed.
There is, you know, you listened closely to the speech as well. There's a lot on her plate in terms of things that she wants to talk about and work on, many reflective, obviously, of her long career before this. But your thoughts on some of the things that she highlighted there?
Yeah, this is really a significant moment that she's taking office. As you mentioned, it's a reckoning on so many fronts, you know, with, for example, reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, from sexual misconduct to the military to, you know, her own workplace issues internally inside Rideau Hall, but also the damage that has been done to the institution overall publicly during the last mandate, all things that she is going to be working on restoring. And she said during her speech that she wants to turn hope into healing. And based on what we saw here today, with, you know, the public lining the streets, cheering when they saw her when she came close, you saw a lot of that hopefulness today in people's faces, and I think it's a sign of what people are really looking forward to.
Yeah, one of the other things that struck me from all the people that I've spoken to about Mary Simon too is that she is very down to earth, obviously, very practical, but she's also very warm. And I think it was Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafont who said that's something that Canadians may have missed because it wasn't necessarily present in the previous Governor General. And that sort of ability to welcome Canadians to you and to what the office means is important too, particularly at this moment in time, at this moment in reconciliation.
And I think that the fact that she's moving into Rideau Hall right now, that's significant. That's not something that we'd normally be talking about. You know, Rideau Hall has been the home and the workplace of governor generals dating back to Confederation, except for during the last mandate. As we know, Julie Payette never moved in, so it's been sitting there vacant for 3 years now. 5,000 square foot living quarters. The government spent more than $250,000 on projects to try to make it more private so that Payette would move in. That never happened. So Mary Simon, we've been told, has visited several times, and she said that it's a privilege to work there. And even just her moving into Rideau Hall is something that I think is a sign of a return to normal that's giving people a lot of ease that work there and that follow Rideau Hall closely.
Okay, Ashley Burke, thank you for your reporting throughout this long story, this coming to a bit of a close, at least this part of it, and thanks for your help on the special today. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
That's the CBC's
Thank
Ashley
you.
Burke, just there at the National War Memorial. We're going to head back to Rideau Hall now. Two people who have been inside watching the event as guests of Mary Simon. Hello to Red and Cheryl McKean, who drove all the way from Nova Scotia for today. They are close friends and neighbors with Simon and her husband, Whit Fraser. Hello to both of you.
Good afternoon. What a glorious day.
Well, we're glad we kept the weather good for both of you after that long drive. Red, I think you're wearing your kilt, are you? I've been told you might be wearing a kilt.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Good man. Good man showing up in your tartans. So tell me, maybe I'll ask you first, Cheryl, how do you know Mary or how do you know the Governor General, I should be calling her, and Whit?
Oh, we've just met them a couple of years ago. Red has been a neighbor of Whit's back in his childhood, and we really got to know them well this winter. We were in a bubble together, and we had lots of good meals together and a great time.
Well, that's lovely. And so, Red, you know Whit from when you were kids.
Yes, Whit and I grew up 3 doors apart in Stellart, Nova Scotia. And we kind of lost track of each other over the years, but we kind of reconnected when he came back for summer vacations in Nova Scotia. And they bought a cottage next door to us, and they decided to spend the winter there because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So we had a 4-person bubble, and we just had a wonderful time. And they're just great people. And Mary will be a truly great representative for the country.
I want to show this picture of how good a time the four of you were having. It doesn't sound like the worst bubble to be in. Let me tell you, it's a picture of the Governor General now and her husband holding a giant plate of lobster. Is that how is that how tough the bubble was there, Red?
Well, our bubble wasn't that tough, as you can see. Anyway, we had lobster that evening at our place, and so we had to dress them up with the lobster bib, and then we enjoyed the meal.
Well, that's great. Well, I think you also...
They weren't all that fancy. They weren't all that fancy.
Well, it's a cottage, and you got to eat lobster with your hands. We also, I think, have a photo of you seeing off Simon to the airport earlier this month. When Mary Simon left, did you guys know what was happening? Did you have any clue, Red?
Well, we kind of figured it out. Mary was sworn to secrecy, but we went through the whole ride with them, and we did know she was in the running. We knew she was in the smaller group.
On the short list,
and as the days on the short list, and as days went on, it wasn't hard to figure out what was happening. And certainly when we took them to the airport, we knew then.
And Cheryl, what kind of person is Her Excellency? What kind of gal is the Governor General?
Oh, she's a lovely person. We love her to death. She loves to collect sea glass, and she is very humble. She's very kind, unassuming, great neighbor. Great friend.
And Red, did you ever think that you'd had a couple of friends that would live in Rideau Hall?
Well, no, and I never expected to be here, so it's really a privilege to be here today.
Yeah.
But anyway, as it was, we were very lucky to get an invite, and have to tell you a story. Mary has a very distinguished past and a very distinguished career. And she's very humble. She didn't like to talk about it. But we kept pressing her and kept pressing her. She kept saying, "But I'm just Mary." And I think that sums up what she's like. She's just Mary, and she's quite a Mary.
Well, that's
quite an individual.
That's lovely, and I'm glad you both made the trip. That's just great that you got the invite and that you drove all the way. I'm going to let you go to the reception because I've been a visitor at Rideau Hall. The food is always excellent, so go enjoy yourselves.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you both. So appreciate it. All right.
Nice to meet you.
Nice of you to make the time. All right. Those are our last guests today on a really momentous day for this country and, of course, for Mary Simon and her friends and family. Those who know the Governor General describe her as a diplomat, a tough negotiator, a unifying presence, but always as an advocate for the North. And now she adds Her Excellency to her title as Canada's 30th Governor General, as we've been saying from the get-go this morning, the first Indigenous person to hold that role. Ms. Simon herself has said today that her appointment is an important moment for the relationship between Canada, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, and of course, an important moment for this country. We want to say a special thank you to our interpreters who provided this program, who translated me and many others from English into Inuktitut. Deborah and Susie and Maggie and Simona, thank you. Matna, I so appreciate being able to speak Inuktitut to the people watching up north. Thank you to our Northern Bureau as well, who contributed so much to this special, all our producers and reporters up there, and to the whole team here at CBC News. Thank you for watching. I'm Rosemary Barton. Thanks for sharing our time today. CBC News Network continues right after this.
Auka dai maitana sa putina.
How are you?
Do you swear that you will well and truly serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in the office of Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada?
I do.